Welcome to another episode of the Odyssey Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Mullally, and I'm here with my special guest today. She is Deb Camilleri, and she is the founder and owner of Perth Building Shelter. So I want to welcome Deb to the show. So Deb, thank you very much for coming in. I'm going to call you Deb. I know your full name's Deborah, but you don't like being called that, so I'll keep it Deb if that's okay with you. So Deb, thanks for coming along. I sort of want to get, I've introduced you as the owner of Perth Building Shelter, but people are probably wondering what on earth is that? So could you tell us what is Perth Building Shelter?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. And yes, do please call me Deb, because Deborah was always my name when I was in trouble.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe it
harkens back to it. Oh, damn it. So Perth Building Shelter is all about supporting new home buyers in the space of construction, in residential construction. It has evolved over the last couple of years dramatically, since even in the last 2 years of opening up the doors for Perth Building Shelter. But fundamentally, it's a place for homeowners to go when they're in construction, or my dream is to get them before construction and be able to mentor them all the way through construction.
So I suppose it's a process of demystifying a lot of the, challenges and the questions around construction. Is that sort of a fair way to, sum up what that, what you kind of advocate for and what you do?
Yeah, that's part of it. So part of it is exactly that. But what I identified over the couple of years of, being in this, there's a bigger picture. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, it's one of the most emotional things you'll ever do is build a house. Sure. Or move house. And so I took a real deep dive into why that is, not just take it on surface value, we're shifting. And primarily it goes down to our prime instinct, where a home is security and safety. And when I worked with, with so many clients, when we start at the beginning and ask, why is this home important to you? And we drill down, fundamentally, nearly all of them say it's about safety, security, it's protection. So now we can start to identify why the home is so important, and why when conflict happens later, on the building journey, why homeowners are struggling with that. So it's not just about teaching them about building. A matter of fact, I don't want to teach a homeowner how to build a house. I want to give them the skill set to build a house. So emotional intelligence, communication, good communication skills, you need that throughout construction. Understanding their homeowner responsibility is a big one. So yeah, it's a little bit more evolved than just, telling them what to look out for. I mean, it does come part of it for sure.
Of course, yeah. But I'm really curious to know. I mean, I know personally, but I'd love if you could share kind of your story of what made you start up Perth Building Shelter, because I understand that was, the culmination of an experience you had during your building process. So could we start from the beginning, so to speak, of how you came to found Perth Building Shelter?
Yeah, for sure. Now, it's always, where do I start this point? Because it is a long journey. That long journey started in 2017, where I didn't know about building, didn't know how to build. I decided to build a home. I decided to subdivide, actually. I had a great opportunity to subdivide. So I didn't know anything about it. The paradigm of just choosing a builder, they know what they're doing, I don't need to do anything, was definitely my mindset at the time. A lot of people think that I started Perth Building Shelter for the reason that when I did build my home, we got to completion and there was a major structural problem with it, which happened to be in the slab. And there was a 12-month period from 2018 to 2019 where there was, we'll call it a building dispute, but there was no lawyers or courtrooms or anything like that. But we were trying to work through. I wanted to know that my house was going to be okay, but the builder had, they were coming from their mindset. So there's always three sides to a story. There's mine, his, and so I'm always careful when I tell this story, because there are other parties involved. There was nowhere for me to turn to. There was nowhere to get the information I was looking for. So when we started disputing whether or not my slab was going to be safe, whether it was going to be a problem later on, there was nowhere I could really turn to without spending a lot of money. to find those questions out. And so it was a very emotional journey. It's an emotional journey at the best of times, but when you've got a big company, like they were a big company, and I was on my own, single mum, where do I turn to? And the places that were there to turn to didn't help me. They didn't give me the information. So initially when I started Perth Building Shelter, it was partly to have a place for people to turn to, but fundamentally, even more than that, it was what I saw in the world at the time that was lacking, and that was empathy and compassion. There was no in between, like the builder had made, the contractors had made the mistake, not the builder. Everybody saw this person as a big person, big company. You should be suing them, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, because everyone was working off an emotional drive. They were seeing me hurting. The management in the company, and I saw them go through tough times as well. So for me, it's not just about the homeowner. It's about how do we bring in a system that's going to be smoother, that's going to nurse the homeowner in the emotional journey, but also how we can work together as a big company and smaller people. And the overall thing is that compassion. There was no humanity. That's the word I'm looking for. At the time, there was no humanity in my world.
Yeah, and it's actually quite nice that you do have that empathetic approach. Is that something that's come from retrospect, or like when you were sort of in the heat of the moment? Was it a case of like were you highly emotional and only able to see it from your side, or even back then were you able to recognize that? Like you mentioned, there's three sides to a story, and were you able to recognise the, I suppose, the other party's perspective in a way, despite what was happening?
Yeah, good question. Luckily for me, I already had that perspective, and it came from a number of areas. Like most people, my journey in life has been not an easy road. So through life experience, I had that resilience. So fortunately, I did have that resilience. The career I was in at the time was in education, and my role was to identify behaviours in children and then reinvent, so we were looking at preventative. So you would identify the behaviour and then you would restructure the next session to be avoiding the behaviour. So we're always sort of working through that at an intervention level. So I had that skill set. I knew to listen. I know that at that time, like always happens for you, not to you. So I had that mindset, fortunately, as well. So, it was something I was fortunate to have already that helped me through that journey. But even having it, there were moments. There were moments that you lose sight of that. I started questioning. I know the one big thing for me was I started to go a little bit crazy in terms of, because when you're under that much stress, your nervous system just starts to give you feedback. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. When you're not doing those things, I was going to work. The only relief I could get was to, at lunchtime, go into the toilet and have a cry just to release it and then come back and keep doing it. I'd come home. There was, highlights in all of that as well. We didn't have any furniture in our house because I got rid of all my furniture ready for the move. So we had no furniture. I'd come home, my bed was my desk space. I was learning the law, I was doing that sort of thing. So, fortunate enough to have that mindset at the time and, knew how to listen to what was being said to me and listen for understanding rather than listen to reply, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. And I do want to dive in a bit more to the sort of, the emotional aspect and the stress that you just sort of mentioned, because I understand that's probably quite widespread right now in the building industry. But before going into that, I kind of want to ask you, obviously, I suppose yourself as a business owner, because now you are a business owner, now starting up Perth Building Shelter. How does can you tell me how that feels like because it's different from going through the process of building. It's a whole another can of worms, so to speak, and there's new challenges. And it's been 2 years roughly now, or have you hit that 2 year mark or a bit over?
Yeah, we have. We've hit the 2 year mark. The grants had a big impact to me coming out sooner than what I I was planning on doing it. And I'm kind of glad for it, because I probably would still been sitting there trying to work it out, trying to get it perfect. And the advantage we've had is through whilst most of my work is the reactive work at the moment, which is from the homeowners that signed up with the grants, there's been so much learning in it. It's helped me develop. I'm so grateful to all our clients because they've helped me develop Perth Building Shelter. And I haven't announced it yet, but we are about to go through a rebrand.
Oh, wow. Okay, you better hear first. There we go.
So
let's hope this episode is released before that.
So I want to kind of keep the identity, but at the same time, it's all about the message, isn't it? It's all about what we are putting out in the world. And my vision has always, from day dot, been that we will be working on a proactive level. So the last 2 years, whilst there's been great learnings from it, the future is about the proactive and avoiding this emotional stress that everybody, not just the homeowner, the builders and everyone has to go through when, the wheels fall off or there's conflict.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you say has been your biggest challenge starting up Perth Building Shelter as a business entity? What kind of things have you found, that you have overcome that have been a challenge for you along the way?
Wow, there's so many. There's so many. I spent 28 years in education in an institution. As much as I love it and I was conditioned, I had no understanding of how to start a business, where to start. The starting point, where was the starting point? It's such a blur. Again, it's sort of fortunate I have that attitude where I kind of live mostly in the present. So whatever presents on the day is what I've got to deal with. The structure, working from home, making sure that we've got that intention all the time that you're working to move it forward. And that's part of the reason for a little bit of a name change, is to move it forward and bring it to that. Self-discipline is getting out of my own way, the limiting beliefs, the feeling that I have this uncapped kind of mindset now where each year I've just proved, more and more I'm capable. And so now I don't even try to think where I'm actually I don't have a destination for this. It will evolve the way it's meant to evolve. So trusting in that, and financially, I spent my life savings to do this, and so they are probably the main ones.
Yeah, fantastic. And even though on paper it seems like it's a very big career change coming from education, but it kind of isn't, right? Do you see that there's a really a big similarity between what you were doing as far as educating people, teaching people, providing knowledge and learning to what you're doing now, translating, even though you're not doing it for children, but it's
debatable.
Debatable. Okay.
No. I suppose that aspect, no, not in that aspect, but the education and probably not in that aspect. There's not it's more the business, the running, the background. As soon as, for me, the taking that journey of taking it the next step and making it more of a passive income so that I can outsource the things, because I'm doing it all at the moment. So like most business, people that do startups and they're doing it all on their own. So I do have a poor money mindset when I say that, I'll just keep doing something for free because I see the bigger picture, but obviously that doesn't. I remember reading a quote, something along the lines of, you can't fulfill your mission without that income to take it forward. So I've got to keep constantly trying. I get a homeowner on the phone, I'm like, we'll worry about that later, but let's just have a conversation first and get you right. But the problem is I get them right and then we get to a point where they're resolved. So again, it's that future that is where I see the growth and that being able to, if I can fund that, then the people that need the help to walk in the door because they're in trouble, we can provide that as a service, as a charity service.
Yeah.
So,
and when you're speaking to people, do you see yourself in a lot of them? And what I mean by that, do you see how you were when you went through your troubles a couple of years back in your building process? Do you see that and you're like, oh, gee, I like really want to help them?
Yeah, so that's probably so even though everything was handled the way it was handled and everything like that, there was still obviously a lot of pain. And what we know about pain is until we resolve it, until we actually have closure on it, we'll just keep doing something to heal it. And so those homeowners that come in and they are in trouble, it's almost like, especially at the moment with what's going on in the building industry. So for those that are listening that aren't aware of what's happening in the building industry at the moment, we've got a lot of trade shortages. We've got a lot of price increases, the building grants, people having to wait for their homes, but they have little understanding of what's going on. So they're in a pain point, but they've also in a financial situation where they've just had a letter from the builder to say, there's a $30,000 increase, and then I've got the tools to help them, but I feel like it's a kick in the gut going, well, I can help you, but it's going to cost you more money, it's kind of that. So it doesn't sit well with me. Yeah, I've tried to do a number of things to sort of, flip that around, but yeah, it absolutely, I see pain, their pain in me, or what was in me. The difference being is, the mindset of what I had, and that's the first journey I take them on, is being able to understand what's going on. I'm not taking sides of the builder, but if you can understand the workings of how a company's working in the back end and why things are taking so long, and then we come back to empathy, because that's what empathy for me is. There's three elements: empathy, compassion, and vulnerability. If we can nail those three, we just, creates a better system for everyone.
Yeah, awesome. And that sort of segues well into what I was going to ask, because I want to circle back into, I guess, like the mental health implications and the, the stress and the running of emotions, on both sides, on, whether it's the home owner or the builder side as well. Could you tell me a bit about the state of play at the moment? And you kind of mentioned some of the factors that could be contributing to those, to high stress. But could you just sort of dive into, I suppose, I guess having an understanding of how we can approach that mental health aspect?
Yeah. This year is really going to be about resilience. Again, I know we keep hearing it. We've had a lot of things happen in the world which has lowered human resilience across the board. Doesn't matter whether you're in a building company, whether you're wherever you are, we have low human resilience at the moment. In terms of the building, some of the things, so if we just break it up a little bit, if we look at the homeowner is not really understanding the full picture. So the little things that they can do is learn how to write to a company and ask questions to get understanding, rather than have an assumption or, like we fill in the blanks in our own head. So there's a lot of media around this at the moment. We're seeing companies, fold. We're seeing, the homeowner is overwhelming themselves with, what is happening. I'm not seeing anything
like
happening on my build.
Scenarios and things like that.
Yeah, there is. There's so many scenarios, and they fill in the blanks. So the first thing I would say to a homeowner is stop doing that.
Yeah. To
write to your company and ask questions. So asking questions is what, how can you, there's certain questions. I've got questions that we teach how to do it, but it's about asking questions. Are you able to share with me what is happening? Are you able to explain what the delays are? Everybody wants a due date at the moment, and the builders just simply cannot, in some cases, give that. And so they don't want to set the homeowner up for disappointment. So they're trying to do the right thing, but it's not perceived that way. So the homeowner, I'd say, ask a lot of questions, seek us out. We'll have it's a phone conversation sometimes, and just to, calm that, monkey brain down. Not that I'm calling homeowners monkeys.
You called them children. You called them monkey brain.
I was talking about the whole industry. No. It's about bringing it back to the present. What can I do? This is the question. What can I do in this next 5 seconds that's going to bring me back into the present moment and make me stop worrying about what might happen, might not happen, and things like that. So bringing it back to the present, and usually that's asking a question. What question do I need to ask? And be specific with that question. So I had a homeowner, she'd sent 4 emails to the builder, rang me and said, they're not listening to me. And a matter of fact, they're being nasty to me now. And I said, okay, what in this email seems nasty? And on the bottom line, the builder had written, we're not going to entertain these questions anymore. How about you come in for a meeting? So the builder had identified that coming in for a meeting, we'll be able to talk. You know, so much gets misrepresented in written communication.
Certainly, yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that when you get written communication, we read written communication through the emotional filter we're feeling at the time.
Right.
So you can imagine you've got a liaison person that's had 100 letters today, people just wanting, you know, just being under the firing line. Like, that's why mental health for them is a struggle. And then you've got the homeowner that's not getting the question answered. And so now you've got this massive conflict. So for a homeowner, bring it back to the here and now and be in the present. The home will get built. It's patience, it's resilience for the homeowner this year. For the tradies, their mental health, because they're being slammed, they're being pushed to get jobs out, get them done. So, and being a male-dominated, and I don't like segregating either, you know, the male, the female, I'm not, it's all parties, but we do know, it's fact and it's science, that men don't talk about how they're feeling a lot of the time. So I think this is something that's really coming to light. So in construction, in your FIFO workers and things like that, encourage the tradies to talk, you know, reach out. The sales reps, I've got a couple of sales reps that are calling me now going, we don't agree with what we're being asked to do, you know, what do we do? So we can only be responsible for our own thoughts, feelings and actions at the end of the day. So for people in construction, it's about talking, it's about bringing it back into the present and what we can do. And empathy, you know, what can I do for this homeowner rather than send an email telling them? Maybe it's about sitting down right now and having time, talking them through the journey of this is what's happening, more understanding. So, yeah. Yeah,
from the trades point of view, like you said, as far as, do you find there's a lack of awareness for, I suppose, the mental health and sort of, let's call it self-care in that department? Do you think there's, because, like you said, men are typically sort of averse to, you know, sharing their thoughts and feelings and things like that. Do you think there's a lack of awareness in that particular industry?
I don't know that. I think there's awareness now. I think we actually do have awareness. We don't know either how to access it or be brave enough to access it. So for a lot of the trades, you know, and remembering you've got to sort of bring in the whole picture, because it's not just their job. It's a range of things. Everyone, as I said, across the board have been affected in some way, shape or form over the last couple of years. And so, you know, there's all that going on. And then at the moment, whilst the trades might be getting a little bit more, you know, dollar for their bricks or their trades or whatever, they're part of the price increase, they've also been starved for the last 20 years. So now they're sort of grabbing it while it's there, but they're being the push to, because it's this chain on effect. You've got the homeowner pushing the builder, and the builder's pushing the trades to just get everything done, because they're all avoiding this conflict, you know. But a matter of fact, if we just talk, if we just sit down and talk and understand what's really going on, and taking a breath and resetting and just starting over and saying, okay, this is just going to take a bit longer. But the trades, yeah, I think there's awareness. I think it's still hard for you know, big blokey bloke to. And I really don't want to stereotype. So, you know, for your listeners, I'm not. It's just what we primarily see, you know. So, but yeah, it's becoming better.
Okay, well that's good news. I did want to ask you though, just going back to, because you did mention that you like to, from the homeowner perspective, getting them well before the construction process, right? So that you can help them be educated. I'm not a homeowner. Right, so like I guess I sort of want to frame it as, what would be like the biggest advice you would give to someone who, you know, perhaps is thinking of building but is very far from actually that construction process or making that commitment, what's the the key piece of advice that you'd give that person? Asking for a friend.
Well, when you come to that stage, obviously you're in good stead. You know, you can come and see me.
I've got a backdoor approach.
The biggest piece of advice is like a lot of people use review sites to pick their builders. A lot of people do what they think they should be doing as a first step. The first step really should be understanding your budget and preparing. So seeing a mortgage broker. The second, if I was to step this in, move away from the paradigm, understand why you're building a home, understand what the need of that home is. We do very little on this. So a homeowner will go see a display home. They get caught up by the emotion of the home and what it feels like. They need to start looking in the direction of what the product's doing. Are my builders that I'm looking at, do they have the same products? Do they, how is that more structure, got more structural integrity? And the reason I say learn first why you are building is because if you're just going to be in that home for a few years and it's going to be a rental, then you wouldn't put the best stone in, and you wouldn't put, there's a lot of money to be saved by just doing this process. Understanding the building process. One of the big hurdles that we see, or biggest, it's bringing it all to this conscious awareness. So I don't know if you're aware, there's these 4 learning stages. So
no, you have to educate me.
Okay, so and I guess I've come back to this because really the first one is we have conscious incompetence. And that conscious incompetence, we don't know what we don't know. So this is the homeowner all over. They don't know what they don't know. And so they just trust the builder's going to tell them everything. They just trust that they're going to be told everything. But there's a lot of homeowner responsibility, and they need to understand that. The next step is, having some conscious awareness. So you kind of know, but you're not implementing it yet. The next stage is the development, conscious development. So they're developing those skills. We see that around after construction. About midway during construction, they go, I wish I had have known that. Oh, if I had have known that. And you really see it play out. And the last one is when it becomes that, just like we're doing now, we're breathing, we're talking. We don't have to put any thought process. It's just we know. Our bodies know how to do it. So they're the 4 stages. So going back to the question of the best piece of advice is understand what you're walking into. Really understand it. Have a conversation. We give free, half an hour, often it sometimes turns into 2 hours, whatever they need to start off with. Get some education around what you're actually walking into and what that means. Also, a common mistake, and look, I'm a little bit on the fence here. Unfortunately, it's a bit like an insurance policy. You kind of need it in this space at the moment, is a building inspector. So, it'd be nice. I hear builders say this all the time. We should be able to build a house, but their system is not warranting that house being built the way it possibly should be. So a building inspector, I wouldn't be at least having a conversation with the building inspector. And we have all these resources. Even though the company's been running for 2, I've been doing this journey for near on 5.
Yeah, sure.
So I've built up those resources, people that we trust, people that we know in the industry are not doing dodgy stuff. And so come and talk to us. Even if it's just to hand you the resources that we've got available, that's what we would like.
Yeah, brilliant. And I can see that there'd be a lot of value from, particularly for first home buyers. But do you find you actually end up working a lot as well with people who are perhaps building their second, maybe third home, and they still have that knowledge gap where there's still things they don't understand, or perhaps they're surprised when something happens, and that's when they, seek out advice for someone like yourself?
Yeah, some of the clients that we've had over the last couple of years, they've said, I'm so angry because this isn't the first time I've built.
Right.
But so much has changed in the last 20 years. And so what they're seeing now is that obviously I get them in when they've gone into conflict.
Right, so it's a reactive process.
It's a reactive.
Again. Yeah.
And again, so, my dream is that, this year, well, one of my plans for this year is to start talking to the builders and get them to look at the programs that I've built. So, because as I said, the programs that I've built is not teaching a homeowner how to build, it's teaching them the skill set that they need to build, which goes hand in hand. It marries up nicely with the builder. They can go ahead and build the house and do their job, but the homeowner is doing their part. And so we find this synergy between the communication. So, a homeowner will write an email to the builder wanting them to feel what they're feeling, but we can do that in 4 paragraphs. But the liaison officer is getting a page, 2 pages. Right. So, it's there is some of the second-time homeowners that are coming through. But there's also a massive opportunity for builders as well, because those first home buyers, if they have a good experience, a nice experience, then they'll come back. But right now what we're seeing, the industry is before the grants come in, it was struggling. A lot of people don't have a good experience, and I don't know if you've ever had an experience that wasn't pleasant. Did you go back and do it again?
No, that's right, yeah. And it, especially so from a building point of view, because of the huge investment, like that, I think you said before that it's probably one of the biggest investments you'll make in your life, right? So that's a very high value transaction. So
getting them to understand the product. We all like nice things, we do, but understanding the product, they're not all the same. Some builders are using better quality. Some builders are, the way they have their trade set up. The common question: do I go a smaller builder? Do I go a big project builder? Well, depends how the company's structured. The company involved in mine, their journey over the last 2 years, because they went through pain, they went through growth. Their focus has shifted. It's not, don't get me wrong, everybody still has their problems and things like that, but there's the smaller builder and the big project builder. I think I heard Andrew, who's a building inspector, say the further away from the person that owns the company that you are, you've got to question, are they sharing all those, their values to their trades and things like that. And there's a misconception, big company's got the money to back a problem. But a matter of fact, the smaller builder avoids the problem because they can't afford the problem.
Right, I see.
Little things like that.
Yeah, certainly. And by the way, that's Andrew Booth from ABBC Building Inspectors. Quick plug for ABBC, who hopefully will sponsor the show perhaps sometime.
I like it.
So I'm going to take a bit of a turn, and we're going to segue into our fun half, Deb. And so for our listeners who maybe just listening for the first time, this is a little segment that we have, which we discuss a film. And Deb, you'd actually asked me, because I hadn't had to articulate this before, but I'm going to mention it now because it's sort of a really good way to sum up why I do it for the show. And the reason I do this segment is I think you can learn a lot about a person from their either their favourite film or perhaps a particular film they don't like, but in any case a film that they are willing to discuss and have something interesting to chat about there. So that's sort of the segment, but we're actually sort of breaking the mold a bit, as I mentioned. We're going to talk about 2 films today because Deb couldn't decide, and I certainly couldn't decide either. So I said, let's talk about both because I think they're both fascinating. The first one the first one we are going to talk about is called Same Time Next Year, which is it's a 1978 film by Robert Mulligan. So Deb, do you want to? I can sort of give a brief overview of what it's about, but it's about this, these two people they're both ostensibly happily married. They've got families of their own, but every year they meet up on the same day each year to carry on an affair, essentially, and they do this for several years, and then the 26 years, and we're seeing them in sort of time jumps between that. So I think it's roughly every 5 or 6 years we see them, and they're changing along that journey. But I sort of want to ask you first, Deb, and you kind of laughed before we got on the show. It's like, oh, I didn't pick it because I like what they're doing. But could you tell me, because you chose this film? Well, why did you choose this film? I'll let you discuss that.
Okay, so yes, they are having an affair. I do not agree. I'm just making that claim. I do not agree with
fine.
the affair side of things.
Yeah.
It was when you said, you can learn a lot about a person. I'm thinking Jeremy probably thinks I condone affairs. No, I don't.
Yeah, Deb was ready to scrub that off the schedule for today. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that one.
What I absolutely love about the film is, as you said, it shows them coming back each year. So, and I think that from a perspective of the producers and what they've produced, they've done that really well. They've done it very well to show the growth that in human development, we go through these growths, and we go through challenges, and we go through events in our life. And the people around us, do often stay, and they are often our family, but we also move on from those people. But seeing how they bring each time they meet, how they've changed, how they're different, what's happened in their life. And it's only, it's very short, each segment, each time they come back.
Yeah.
But seeing that progression and that change in human, as who they are as people, and how there's times that, she changes and he's like, hang on a minute, I don't like this. Who's this person in front of me? But that's what we do in life. We evolve, and if we don't, then I don't know, we'll still be children. We'll still be children. Yeah. So from that aspect, I love it. And it just, I don't know, it makes me, it makes me feel a certain way when I watch the movie, and it is that growth. There's also, I probably connect with it on a level where I had a very dear friend, and we were very, very close, but we weren't in a relationship, but we did date early on in our lives. It's kind of that relationship.
Yeah,
I'm kind of thinking, what do I say this? Where's this going to?
Yeah.
We had that relationship where it was on, off, that sort of thing. And
But like sort of lifelong friends, like you've known each other a long time.
Yeah, lifelong friends. Yeah. And I lost him. I lost him because we both married. And for me to have a weekend, not to do what they do in the movie, but to have him back for one weekend, he was my rock, he was my everything. So I think I really, from the core of me, identify if I could just have that one weekend every year for him to be mine again. Not mine as in a relationship, but
a
mine,
friend, like a dear
my friend.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little bit teary because I miss him, and it's been years that he just drew the line in the sand, that he felt he couldn't have the marriage and our friendship for whatever reasons, and I miss that. So, returning to the movie for myself each year is kind of bringing that up, is if I could just have that one weekend.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating, because that again, that's why I like talking about these things, because there's a reason that people resonate with certain films, and for you that's that reason. And I think when we were talking about it, did you say that it's a film you watch every year as well? Is it one that do you watch on the same day every year?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Most years I watch it at least once. There was, a matter of fact, there was actually 4 years that I didn't watch it. And those 4 years was when we didn't have a TV, because I got rid of all our TVs.
Yeah, you mentioned you went,
everything,
there's a time we didn't have furniture.
Yeah, we didn't have furniture, but I also got rid of the TVs because every advert was the building company's advert. So I didn't have a radio or a TV on for 4 years.
Right.
Because it had that emotional
you didn't want
reaction.
That in your face all the time.
Because the kids and people go, well, why don't you just keep it off? Well, the kids turn the TV on half the time, and then I'd hear the advert and I'd be like, But so there was 4 years I didn't watch the movie, but I've returned to
You're back on schedule.
Yeah, I'm back on schedule. So it's usually I get a feeling and I just go, and it would be really interesting to track that to see whether it is happening around the same time every year.
Like maybe the feeling pops up. Yeah, it's time to watch this. Yeah.
A bit like your alarm clock that goes off in the morning. You wake up just before it goes
off.
Yeah, maybe I should.
It could be something like that.
Maybe I should identify and see whether. But I do. I try and watch it each year. It annoyed me this year. It really annoyed me.
Have you watched it this year?
Yeah, I have. And it was, what was really interesting for me this year watching it was it irritated me this year. I still loved it. I still got that feeling, but it irritated me that Alan Alda in it.
Yeah.
He's just in drama. He's just in drama all the time. I'm like, come on, get out of drama. You're just putting yourself in that drama triangle all the time. And probably because the last 2 years have been so much reactive work and we see that drama. I know from a coaching perspective that it's a choice and, how to get out of drama. But maybe that's why it irritated me this year, because I'm thinking, you're just dramatic. You're just, inviting her in to have an argument with you.
Yeah, right. Because that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you find, like, given that you have been watching it, like, so many, like, you've watched it, I can't imagine how many times you've watched it, but there's, like, you've been watching it over the years and you the characters are changing in the film, but you're also changing and growing. Like, do you find yourself, your perspective on the characters changing and your perspective on the film and how you feel about it? Do you find that changing and developing as you watch it?
Yeah, this year I really noticed it.
Yeah,
this year was probably the big. I really, really noticed it this year.
Uh-huh.
Previous to this, it was more tapping into that emotional feeling of pining and missing someone in my life. So that was still there, but it was just, so me changing. And the last couple of years has been also massive growth and learning for me in the human development space.
Yeah.
Because
like you mentioned, you're seeing it from a different like paradigm of like you've got these skills and like, he's doing this and that and the other. Yeah.
Yeah. I love watching, which we won't go down this rabbit hole, but there's certain reality TV shows, not Married at First Sight, nah. There's certain ones that really need the psychological gameplay to be involved in, even though they edit and stuff like that, there's still an element that they, like Survivor.
Do you mean to be in the program?
To be in the program.
Okay.
Yeah, to be in the program, but also to participate in the program, they need to have, I love the reality where they have to work out how to manipulate or how to get to
influence other people.
How to influence people and stuff like that. So I'm not a big TV person, but there's just a couple reality TVs where it's gameplay. They really have to, you get a really deep insight to what those people potentially are like. They're competitive, that's for sure. But how they just have to influence and what they use to influence and things like that. So. Yeah,
okay. And I'm sure I might get into trouble for asking this question, but when was the first time you watched Same Time Next Year?
What year was it released?
1978.
Okay, it wasn't then.
You don't have to say how old you are when you watched it.
I'm trying to work it out. I'm trying to work it out. I'm that now. I'm not good at maths. We're talking probably 30 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So, like, roughly,
so 78 it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working up north, and that was, 88. It would have been about 88. The reason I know is because there was an event in my life that I can connect to seeing that movie for the first time.
Okay. Do you want to share that, or is that you don't have to?
No, that's okay. I was just in a car accident. It was a double fatality, and it grounded me. Guess what? I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't leave home. So there was a lot of movie watching.
Yeah.
And that's how I know it was 88.
Okay.
Because it was 88 that I had the accident. And that's what I meant by I had that human resilience, because it was a double fatality. 2 people were killed, one being a child. And that's why I stayed in education for so long. Yeah. So because I felt that I didn't protect that child. And, we have this deep psychological stuff that's happening that when you start connecting it all up and look back and connect all the dots, it's quite fascinating. But, I stayed in education to protect kids, obviously, because I couldn't in that moment. So, so it was 88.
Yeah, okay. Gee. Yeah. And I sort of want to go as well into, while we've got time, into the other film, because it actually, and you mentioned the reason that you resonate with it is because it relates a lot to, your journey in the more recent years of, Perth Building Shelter, but even before that, going through your process of building. And that film is called On the Basis of Sex, which is a 2018 film. The director is escaping me. I think Mimi Leader is the director of that one. So do you want to tell us why you resonate with that? I mean, just to give an overview, it's not her whole life, but it's based on RBG and her early years in the 60s, centered around a particular case that she sort of propelled her career. But could you sort of tell me that's another film that you really resonated with and why you wanted to talk about that today?
Yeah. So again, I want to make it very clear that this is not a feminist thing or anything like that.
I think I would have no problem if it was.
No, but it's not that. It was the fact that 2018 was the year that I was going through the dispute site, the dispute year, so where we were trying to work it out. So the house has been built. We're trying to work it out. And I went and saw that movie and I sobbed from beginning to end. And it wasn't the fact that... So she was a big advocate for the equal rights. Rights. And she went on to become a judge. She took the bar and, she was, kind of isolating the fact that she was a female and stuff like that. But it wasn't that element. What grabbed me for the movie was the fact that there was something she was fighting that was far beyond her measure, that she couldn't see the light of. She just knew that she had to keep going. So for me, watching that movie at the time I was going through what I was going through gave me hope, and I resonated with it that even though I can't see that light at the end of the tunnel, even though I can't work it out, she also inspired me to learn more about the law. So as I said,
because she's very studious, like she's and very calculated and measured and well read and researched, like in the aspect of law. Did you see that kind of coming through as well? That's
right, I did, and I saw that coming through. And the other thing, again, talking about all plotting back and linking up. This car accident I had a major head injury. I had to work at bringing everything back from my memory. So, it was that. And I had told myself that I didn't have the ability to learn anything.
Right.
I had no ability to. This is who I was. I was pensioned off at the time, told I'd never work again. And I was like, I'm 21. Go on, guys. But because of the head injury, they said, you lost it all. You're going to have to learn it all again. And so I had told myself a story from 88 to 2018 that I can't learn. And then when she inspired me in this movie of the study she was doing, and I was also pulling law books out because I couldn't afford a lawyer for my building dispute, I started realising that, I can learn, and I'm remembering that, and and I'm using it in such a way, and I'm piecing it together. And it was fascinating because I'd learn one section of construction law and it would lead me down to another section. And all of a sudden I started discovering all this stuff about myself that I've been telling myself a story for a very long time that wasn't true. And I was very capable of learning. And so that part of her inspired me in the story as well to, just identify something in myself that we shouldn't limit ourselves. We shouldn't ever limit ourselves and tell ourselves that we can't do something. We just got to keep going until we achieve it. But it was more the fact that, she was just fighting something so big, so far that there was times that she just could not see. She questioned herself. She doubted herself. And again, what did a lot of damage through the building staff was you have to have that core belief in yourself that you are right. And when I say that, I don't mean I was right against the builder. I'm talking about... But
you're doing the right thing.
I was doing the right thing. So nobody agreed, and there was no one in my world. They supported me, but no one agreed with the way in which I was handling it. Nobody agreed that this shouldn't be about him paying me, out for emotional damage and that. I don't know where we ever came to a conclusion that emotional damage equals a lot of money. So, I had to... I remember coming across this image, flicking through something on Facebook or Google or something, and it was a black and white image. Down the centre of the page was a road, and then it was a fork in the road. And on one side there was a image of a person, and this is all in black and white, so it was an image of a person, and on the other there was hundreds of people. And I remember that moment when I saw that image and I just thought, that's how I feel. And even now with what I'm doing, nobody agrees with that it should be about working together, whereas I can't see it any other way. So it doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're right and I'm wrong, but I have to be really firm, believing in my core values and who I am. And that's my biggest takeout through everything I've been through, is that it really has solidified me to being firm on who I am and what I stand for. Closing out the white noise and just going forward. People that will follow, that feel it's the right fit. So
yeah, okay. Well, I wonder if there's another similarity with the film, because I know from her perspective, RBG didn't see herself as like the spearhead of any kind of, you know, social or feminist movement at the time, but rather, you know, either a product or at least just a kind of a member of that movement and, you know, being a part of it. Do you see it in the same way from what you're doing? You're not so much, even though I consider you a leader, you're not the originator of it or the creator of it, but you're a part of that movement and you're doing your part to contribute to that. Do you see that?
Very much so, because we can't do things alone. I stand here today, the person I am, because of every single person in my life that has influenced me. We don't do anything alone. And I'm not sure, again, where we get this concept that we do. For me, I know when I very first started, the very moment I decided that at that time of while I was trying to get through it, I made this decision that if I can't help myself, I can help others. And at that time, I did have that drive to be a leader in it and this, that and the other. And it was a couple of years ago that I just made this aha moment, I guess, and it has a lot to do with the builder as well, because I realised that I only have to impact one person at a time. And every encounter that I have impacts me in some way and grows me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to be... I don't need to be on the front page saying, you know, she did this, none of that. As a matter of fact, even my birthday, I don't celebrate my birthday. It's like, I don't want the attention.
Yeah, I my family members know I cringe every time I have to blow the candles off the cake. They try and give me a hard time. So.
Yeah, I totally get you on that one. So, yeah, I want to be working together to be bringing this to fruition. I can't see any other way that you can't. How can you build a product to work, marry up and find synergy when you're only coming from one side? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But the double-edged sword of that is there is knowing what I know about the industry. And again, we're sort of looking always on the side of the reactive work. People want you to take sides.
They want someone to blame.
I won't take sides. Even when we're doing a building dispute, the first thing I tell a homeowner is, I'm not here to take sides. I'm here to help you mediate, or not. I shouldn't use the word mediation, but because often I am sitting. But I give the tools to the homeowner. My favourite is when I can give them and they go and do it for themselves. And I'm just sitting there as an observer. Yeah. So, but that's the conflict side, and we can be doing but imagine if we had a program that from the very start were giving the skill set to when you get if you fall into conflict, that you're in a much better position being able to manage it. Yeah. You know, so, I can definitely draw that conclusion.
Yeah. Were there any other sort of points of life imitating art? Were there any sort of sweeping courtroom scenes when you were going through a dispute and it was kind of like the movie and everything like that, or not so much?
So many. The thing from a homeowner perspective, the homeowner's quite passive aggressive in their approach, and it's not that they're deliberately doing this. It's they want, and I can identify with this. The only difference between me, and I'm not superior, I'm not different, it's because of my training that I handled it differently. It's so inhumane when you have gone to a company, You've spent all this money. You're trusting them to build a product, and then something goes wrong. Now, a couple of things happen. One, the homeowner doesn't understand there's solutions to so it's just there's two. The homeowner's in a more romantic relationship. The builder's in a business relationship. Right. So from day dot, the relationships are slightly different. But when it goes wrong, the homeowner feels that it's, if they understood how I feel, they wouldn't do this. There's really a lot of that happens. And so a homeowner will start telling stories of this is happening in my life, because if you understand that this is happening in my life, I've got a sick father, or I've got, I had an argument with my sister, and this is also, they're trying to express that they're feeling a certain way, hoping that the builder goes, I didn't realise that. But it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. So we teach a very simple format that, that tells the builder, how they're feeling, what the problem is, how they need the solution. So, and, invites them into working together. So we see a lot of that. And I think this is where the builders missing the mark a little bit. Builders have been doing it for 30 years. I'm not in any shape, way or form telling them how to build. I'm saying there's an aspect that's really being overlooked. So a lot of companies will spend thousands of dollars in the training of good customer service, but they're not listening. They're not hearing what the homeowner's really saying. So I encourage the homeowner to use authentic emotions to share that. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, it comes back to those three things, and vulnerability being one. But when you see conflict happen, everybody I've got to keep my cards close to me. I can't tell them how I'm feeling because they'll use it against me. But a matter of fact, I've been in meetings where a homeowner has said, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling scared, and I've seen the builder just collapse and go, okay, tell me what's going on. And the body language says, okay, I'm now on humanity.
Listening.
I'm listening. Yeah. Whereas when you go in and you say, oh, this happened and that happened, that's drama. Yeah. That's just drama. But and one particular case really sticks out in my mind, these homeowners, they didn't want to go to this meeting. And I said, just use your authentic emotions, this, that and the other. The builder did his bit where he was like, talking about this is the thing. And they were being spoken at rather than to.
Yeah.
And then it was the homeowner's turn, and both the husband and wife were both equally just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And anyway, the homeowner started to talk to the husband, and the builder interrupted, and he said, stop, I'm angry. I gave you your time. Now it's my time. And he wasn't interrupted for the rest of that. He set, a tone, but he used authentic emotion. And then further on, the wife had said, I feel scared and I feel sad because I don't know where we're going to get our grants. And that it comes back to that question. Remember the question that wasn't being answered in the email? Again, how we communicate. The homeowner had been asking all these questions, but that's not what they wanted the answer to. They want to know, is our slab going to go down in time to get the grants? But that's not what she was asking. They were asking, have you got a timeline? What's happening with the build? But now we've got a question.
Yeah, and it's real
directly
concrete.
And in that meeting it came up when she said, I feel scared and sad. Are we going to get the grants? And then everybody went,
Yeah, now we know what.
Now we know what the problem is.
Yeah.
So communication. Can't stress it enough.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I think it's a good way to end it. We're going to have to wrap up there, Deb. I've really enjoyed our conversation. But before we do close out, how can people, get in touch with you and learn a bit more about Perth Building Shelter?
Yeah, thank you. So our Facebook, Perth Building Shelter on Facebook. We've also got a website. Look, to be honest, the Facebook has lots of good, juicy content in there. One thing, if this is going out soon, the price increases are rife at the moment. On the Facebook page, Perth Building Shelter, I have pinned a HIA from the HIA, a video regarding the price increases. It's a really good starting point for homeowners. But not being afraid to go back to the builder and seek to understand, to ask questions so you're understanding, what are my options, asking that question. what are my options? But Perth Building Shelter on Facebook's the best place.
Okay, great. And we'll have those links as well, where we post this on the relevant channels. But yeah, again, just wanted to say thanks again for coming along, Deb. I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I do hope that we'll be able to get you on again sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Jeremy. I really, really appreciate the opportunity. And if there's any builders out there listening, right now, even a workshop for their homeowners on resilience, get in touch with me.
Okay, well, that's great advice. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Odyssey Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode.